or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Up to a 30% upfront bonus and 12% per year guaranteed growth for retirement. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and these are the highest guarantees with annuities I have seen in my life. When interest rates are this high, there are silver linings, and annuity guarantees are one of them. Up to a 30% bonus upfront for retirement income. On $100,000, that's up to $42,000 guaranteed in the first year. And it's because of the economy and its high interest rates. Don't let anyone, especially another financial advisor, tell you it's not true. Up to 30% upfront just for opening an account and up to 12% per year guaranteed income growth. Don't miss out. This won't last forever. If you have an old 401k, get up to 30% upfront and 12% guaranteed growth for income today.
Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
You've been working so hard to keep your lawn and garden looking good. Maybe it's time to make your home look incredible with new window frames and double pane glass from Advanced Window Products. If you can imagine it, they can create it at their factory in Salt Lake City. Any style, any color, security enhancements to keep your family safe. All this and factory direct pricing. You're buying local and paying less. So seal up your home and reap the energy savings with Advanced Window Products, where they've been creating windows for 38 years. No subcontractors, they're not resellers. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. And right now at their summer special, get an extra $2,500 off on 10 windows or more. They offer 0% financing and even buy now, pay later. Busy season's just hitting. Call now. Advanced Window Products, $2,500 off. But you have to call 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or go to advancedwindowsusa.com.
Progressive presents 10 things on a plumber's to-do list that are harder than getting a small business insurance quote. Waking up for 5 a.m. plumbing disasters, finding out why water is pouring from the ceiling, replacing a pipe in a home from the 1800s, then dealing with invoices or your awkward apprentice or that really weird smell, and then there's breathing and eating and, of course, clogs. But the easiest thing on any small business owner's to-do list? Seeing if you could save on the business insurance that's right for you. Get a quote in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers.
Family Talk with Straight Talk.
You give and you give. It's time to get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get a reliable 5G network and unlimited data, and you get to choose who joins your family plan starting as low as $25 a line.
Does it have to be family?
It can be family or people you like.
Get more lines and more savings. Switch to Straight Talk for family plan starting as low as $25 a line per month for 4 lines. Find us at Walmart and straighttalk.com. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com. Family plan discount with 4 lines, all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Taxes and fees apply.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have delays in Davis County on southbound I-15, Layton into Kaysville, in part due to the first accident that occurred after the Kaysville Pond south of 200 North, still blocking a left lane, and a secondary crash in that at Layton Parkway. Fill up your bucket list in Box Elder County. History, recreation, and wildlife, and excellent dining and shopping await you. Learn more at visitboxeldercounty.com. Sponsored by the Utah Office of Tourism. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We're right on track for early June today with sunny skies and a high of 79 degrees. By the weekend, though, we will be in the upper 90s. Right now, fair and 72. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Within the last hour, President Joe Biden has announced a new executive action, not an executive order. We'll talk about that coming up at 1:50, but a new executive action regarding immigration, particularly surrounding the issue of seeking asylum at the southern border. The question is, all of this trying to solve a policy problem in our immigration system, or is he solving a political problem for 2024. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as was mentioned, President Biden made an official announcement on a new executive action today about the southern border and asylum seekers at the border. And this is an interesting one. There were elements in what the president declared today that I completely agreed with. There were things that I absolutely disagreed with. The process by which he is going about it, I absolutely disagree with. And I also have similar feelings towards Republicans in Congress, Democrats in Congress, and a few others I'm sure we'll get to as we go along. Because the interesting thing to me is, again, I think we're so busy solving political problems that we're not having policy discussions that actually lead to certainty for those that are coming to the borders of this country. And we have to get to what actually makes sense. Now, to begin, on the political side of things, we're going to go in the Wayback Machine. We're going to go back to the presidential race of 2020. Of course, we had the former president and the current president, both seeking the highest office in the land. And in that moment, in a hotly debated debate, Joe Biden went after then President Donald Trump on the issue of immigration. And interestingly, many of the things that he said in that debate, he completely flipped 180 on today.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing. And this is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise, why I deserve it under American law.
So that was then candidate Joe Biden saying that Donald Trump was the first president in American history to turn people away completely when they're seeking asylum. Well, now we have the second president in American history to do that very same thing, and it happens to be the very same Joe Biden. Now, as president of the United States, he's using executive action to stop people from accessing the border, even those seeking asylum. If certain numbers are hit, if the encounters at the border top 2,500 between the official ports of entry, the shutdown would go into effect immediately. And currently, that's where we are, and so this would be an immediate thing happening at the southern border. And so the question in all of this is just very muddled because it's very political. There's some logistical things that we have to go through in terms of what it actually means, what it would actually do, and the fact that this will be undone and have really no staying power because it's not even at the level of an executive order. That's an important thing to think again about. Executive orders stay in place until they are either overturned by the courts, which happened to then President Donald Trump relating to asylum seekers and stopping people at the border. So I'm sure that part is going to begin as it relates to what Joe Biden announced today as president. And then the other thing that happens is administrations change, and those executive orders are usually overturned. Or they can also be declared null and void if Congress, radical concept, if Congress does its job and actually acts on a particular issue. Presidential action doesn't even have that weight to it. And so this is even less certain than anything that either of the presidents have done up to this point as it relates to border security. Now, I do want to go through a couple of the things that the president did lay out in his address, again, about an hour ago, announcing this executive action to restrict asylum-seeking migrants crossing our southern border. Take a listen.
Today, I'm announcing actions to bar migrants who cross our southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum. Migrants will be restricted from receiving asylum at our southern border unless they seek it after entering through an established lawful process. By making an appointment and coming to a port of entry, asylum will still be available to them. But if an individual chooses not to use our legal pathways, if they choose to come without permission and against the law, they'll be restricted from receiving asylum and staying in the United States. This action will help us gain control of our border, restore order into the process. This ban will remain in place until the number of people trying to enter illegally is reduced to a level that our system can effectively manage.
So the president called for a number of things in terms of increasing border agents, increasing those who could process in the legal system those applications for asylum, saying that he hoped that it would go from a 6-year process to a 6-month process, which is probably still 6 months too long, but that would be a major step forward. And the interesting thing to me is just where the reaction to all of this is. Talk about your think again moment. You've got members of the Democratic Party coming out swinging wildly at the president for what he has done, that he has caved in, that he has not kept his promises. You have people on the right saying this is too little too late, or this is just gross hypocrisy for an election year. And then, of course, you have Joe Manchin, independent from West Virginia, who said, well, at least something happened. Something was done. The president was swift to point out today that Republicans did not take action when given the chance, that there was a bipartisan bill that was voted down in the House of Representatives. So he was quick to score that political point and rack that in and say now because of that inaction, the president was going to act on his own. And that's what he did today. Of course, from the right, it's a lot of finger pointing, a lot of shoulder shrugging in terms of this being a superficial gesture was how it was described by many on the Republican side of the aisle. But I'm just going to call everybody out. This is one of those things that we can get done and solve as a nation. And those who are coming here seeking asylum, that are truly seeking asylum, that are not being sent here by gangs and drug lords and human traffickers, but those that are truly coming here out of fear for their safety and well-being in their own country, that is part of who we are. No country is more compassionate than the United States of America. And so I think the thing that we have to think again about today is while the president announced this executive action, this will do little to nothing to change the dynamic at the border. It will do nothing to create more certainty for those who do want to come here legally. It will create more uncertainty in terms of what that process is and who's actually in control of the southern border. But the thing we really have to think again about is the fact that we can do this because rule of law and compassion are actually compatible principles in this country. And if our elected officials would recognize that, if they would believe that, and they would act on that, all of these political issues that we're discussing about the southern border would go away. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. And suddenly,
we watch temperatures start their climb.
It's summer.
Better chances for 90-degree days.
Get a reliable KSL forecast and the latest road and construction delays. With traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s. Mornings and afternoons, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
With big tech coming after our kids,
the inflow of illegal drugs coming to our state.
For Attorney General, we need someone we can trust to do the right thing for the right reason.
That's Derek Brown.
Derek fought to protect kids on social media.
He'll defend the Second Amendment.
Stand up to Biden when he tries to take our lands.
Derek Brown will fight to secure the border.
And that's the kind of leadership we really need.
We trust Derek Brown for Attorney General.
I'm supporting Derek Brown.
Paid for by Derek Brown for Attorney General.
Saving for retirement was tough enough for us.
Yes, and navigating markets can be challenging at times.
I understand. That's why at Fisher Investments, we take a disciplined approach with your investments.
Tell us more about that.
We take an active approach to money management, positioning your portfolio for opportunities we see ahead.
So all your clients get the same portfolio?
No. We tailor your portfolio to your individual goals and needs.
What about communication? We don't like being left in the dark.
We check in regularly to keep you informed on the markets and your portfolio.
Which means you'll help us stay on track.
Yes. Our goal is your comfortable retirement. And as a fiduciary, we always put your interests first. Because we do better when you do better. At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
You know, when I was growing up, Tim, I thought I knew things about food. This food was good for you. This food was not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that all turned out to be completely wrong, which I found out when I got my own nutritionist at Soda Weight Loss. That's SOTA weightloss.com. She is a text away, still to this day, that I can ask her anything. And really, you get like a whole new education, which is what Avery said.
I feel like you're enrolling in like a school of nutrition with a whole new perspective on what food is and what it does for your body. That kind of makes the biggest difference, is it teaches people about food.
So when you go to sodaweightloss.com, you'll see a button right there. It just says request a nutritionist callback. Click on that button.
And here's the other great thing. You're going to save 15% on the program when you do and start that relationship with that nutritionist who becomes your best friend along the way while you reach your goal weight. Again, go to sodaweightloss.com. It's spelled SOTA, and it stands for state of the art.
Curious about stem cells? Stem cell therapy is revolutionizing the medical industry. Tony Robbins, Joe Rogan, Mel Gibson, all talking about the benefits, helping to repair damaged tissues, supporting healthy inflammatory response, and improving recovery times for a variety of conditions including chronic pain, injuries, hair loss, and skin care. It provides a promising alternative to traditional surgical procedures. Stem cell therapy may be the right choice for you. Stop by for an evening of education on stem cell therapy. The features and benefits this Thursday at 6 p.m. at the Hyatt in Lehigh. Tickets are $20 at the door, or register for free at eventbrite.com and search for stem cell therapy or call 866-STEM-EVENT. Stop by an evening of education on stem cells. Register for free admission at eventbrite.com. Just search for stem cell therapy or call 866-STEM-EVENT. This Thursday, 6 p.m. at the Hyatt in Lehigh.
Paid for by government.com. Have you heard? A recent stash of 1902 Morgan silver dollar coins has been found. These gorgeous 1902 silver dollar coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck, and less than 300 of these Morgan silver dollars are available. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone interested in silver coins. Just call government at 1-800-806-1641, and you are guaranteed a mint condition 1902 Morgan silver dollar, featuring the iconic old mint mark of the New Orleans Mint, but with limited quantity. You must call now. These 1902 silver coins are still in uncirculated condition. That is 122 years of history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-806-1641. Call now and you'll receive a free American Coin Collector's Bonus Package, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-806-1641 now to secure your 1902 Morgan silver dollars before they sell out. That's 1-800-806-1641.
Magic is coming to Dave's Bernina in Provo and St. George. The all-new top-of-the-line Bernina 990. Come in for an amazing special pre-order offer. Save big on trade-ins and demo machines while they last.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues.
Boyd
Matheson on Inside Sources.
Well, Congress is currently setting itself up once again for the big crash. It's sort of like going to a NASCAR event, just waiting for the big collision. This time it's the collision of fiscal priorities. And the more agenda items they put off and punt to late this year or to early in 2025, the worse it is going to be. In a heated election season and a lot of the politics that's taking precedent over what we would call good, smart policy, we're seeing more and more dysfunction that will lead to next year's big collision. It is coming. It's going to be a pileup of epic proportions unless Congress decides to actually do the job they have been elected to do, not the job they're running to do, which may be social media and appearing on national news networks. Caitlin Emma covers the federal budget and congressional spending bills on Capitol Hill for Politico, and a really clear-eyed, in-depth look at Politico. You can check out her piece at Politico.com talking about Congress is already getting ready for that 2025 fiscal pileup. And Caitlin, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
This is one of those crucial conversations. We get to this often on this show because this stuff really matters, and it has become the art of Congress, is how many things you can kick down the road or how many things you can dump into one, 2 or 3 or 4,000 page bill and try to deal with it all at once. Give us the lay of the land as it comes to the really crucial stuff of debt ceiling, federal spending, tax cuts, which hasn't been part of the equation for a little bit, and budget caps, all hitting in a pretty rapid order.
Right. So we're sort of staring at, just a fiscal cliff that is part, Congress's own making, and that will be part just things that happen to be, expiring next year in 2025. So it's an election year, as everybody knows. So government funding, the one thing that Congress has to do every single year, which is fund the government, tends to take a back seat while we're gearing up for the presidential election. So, certainly we're not going to anticipate any serious action on that front until after the election. So you have lawmakers, pushing to get that done between the election and the end of the calendar year. But then you have conservatives who are really hoping that, Donald Trump wins the White House back, that they win unified control of the government, that they keep the House and take back the Senate. And so they're sort of like chomping at the bit for this opportunity next year to make their imprint on all of these big fiscal issues. And, in that case, you would be punting what is essentially funding the government, another debt ceiling deadline, the expiration of these, several Trump-era tax cuts that Republicans are looking to renew next year, and the expiration of these, overarching budget caps that set budgets for the military and for, a host of other federal agencies. So it's really like a perfect storm of stuff that's set to coincide next year, and it all depends on the presidential election, how that, is going to shake out.
Yeah, it's definitely in the what could possibly go wrong category come 2025, because all of these things converging at once is a big deal. We know just the drama that we went through in the last raising of the debt ceiling, so that the country can continue to pay its debt. The funding of the government, we've sort of gotten used to the kicking of the can down the road with continuing resolutions. But you also pointed out the important element there, especially around things like the military, which can't really be creative or effective off of continuing resolutions, because if they need to disband a weapon system that's no longer working or sufficient, they can't do that under a continuing resolution. They have to have new legislation that's a little more specific. So kind of walk us through, how does this all, if this is all to converge early in the year in 2025, how is that going to play out?
Right. Well, like I just said, obviously everything hinges on who controls the White House, who controls the House and the Senate. If we end up with like another divided government, say, hypothetically, President Biden stays in the White House, but Republicans take back the Senate and Democrats control the House or something like that, we are setting ourselves up for another huge mess next year. As that relates to the debt ceiling, that is probably the highest stakes item on Congress's agenda next year. That is something, there's obviously these periodic fights over shutting the government down, funding the government. The government has shut down before. It's not great. It's not a good scenario. Breaching the debt limit has never happened before. It would be catastrophic. I mean, it would sow doubt globally in America's ability to keep its financial promises. So it is not something to be messed with, but Congress keeps messing with it because it becomes the ultimate political bargaining chip. And then in addition to that, you have all these other things. I mean, you have these, very controversial Trump-era tax cuts that Republicans want to extend, but at the same time, that could add trillions of dollars to the deficit. So they're sort of walking this weird line between, saying they want to renew these tax cuts, but also being against something like adding money to the deficit. So it's really a perfect storm of, of all the things that could converge next year. But everything hinges on the outcome of the presidential election.
Yeah, and I do think it's so fascinating. You pointed this out really well in your piece at Politico.com that everyone's against all the spending if they're out of power, and they tend to go with it if they are in power. So you noted that if Republicans are in control, and if the former president becomes the next president, then a lot of these things will probably get done pretty easily, again, if Republicans are in control. Whereas if the Democrats are in control, then you got some really interesting dynamics in terms of some of that spending. And everyone seems to be balancing that. They always want to balance the budget and get rid of this deficit spending unless they're the ones doing the spending. And then somehow they think it's okay, and they walk that really weird line you just described. as we're going to keep these tax cuts in place, and we're going to say we got to balance the budget at the same time.
Right. And to your point, I mean, I think one thing worth noting is, this idea of unified government, say Republicans do make it a clean sweep on Election Day. I don't necessarily think that lends itself to an easy solution to any of these problems either, just because the Republican conference as it stands now is so fractured over spending among almost any other issue. It's like one of the most divisive things that they just simply cannot get it together on. And, if they have unified control of government, they can use this special tool called budget reconciliation to basically, pass a massive spending bill that, enacts their tax cuts and all of that. They could also use that tool to lift the debt ceiling. But if I had to guess, I would say that they probably wouldn't do that because, when you're the party in power, you don't want to, solely shoulder the blame for, raising basically America's debt.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting, weird line that they're going to walk if they actually do secure, unified control of government next year.
Yeah, it is so fascinating, and I love the way you pointed out in your piece. We're always equal opportunity offenders on this show, so we'll call everybody out in terms of this. But I love the last line of your piece from Representative DeLauro from Connecticut, Democrat from Connecticut, saying, hey, just fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a very bumpy ride. And I think that may be the best and most certain thing we can plan on when it comes to the fiscal house here in the United States over the next year. And great perspective. Caitlin Emma covers the federal budget and congressional spending bills on Capitol Hill for Politico. Check out her piece at Politico.com. Caitlin, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Great stuff from Caitlin Emma. And we're going to call it out on both sides of the aisle. If you're going to have to raise the debt ceiling, fund the government, deal with the tax cuts, you got to deal with military spending in the midst of all of that as well. It's going to get complicated. But if it's all politics, we're not going to get to the right things. And the fiscal house getting in order has to be one of the highest priorities. We know it's one of the greatest national security risks we have. According to everybody, from military experts on down, everyone believes if we don't get our fiscal house in order, we don't have real national security in this country. We got to get this one straight. We'll be right back.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. Don't miss Cold's new Season 3, where I look into the unsolved disappearance of Cherie Warren, a woman last seen leaving her job at a Salt Lake City office in 1985. Police cast suspicion on Cherie's estranged husband and boyfriend, but never made any arrests or recovered Cherie's remains. Find Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, anywhere you get your podcasts.
Your mortgage. There's a free government program that offers expert one-on-one advice about your mortgage options. Call 1-888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
1:30 in the KSL 24-hour newsroom. I'm Becky Bruce. KSL's top local story this hour: the victim involved in a road rage fight in Lehigh over the weekend has passed away. His family says Michael Brown suffered a traumatic brain injury in that fight. A state law that would enhance penalties for road rage in Utah takes effect July 1st. Our top national story this hour from ABC News: President Biden announcing he's taking executive action today to tackle illegal immigration.
Migrants will be restricted from receiving asylum at our southern border unless they seek it after entering through an established lawful process.
The move also means if there are 2,500 migrants reaching the border in a 7-day period, the president has the authority to close the border entry point. A new study shows a decrease in the number of new OBGYNs in Utah since stricter abortion rules took effect.
A study by the AAMC Research and Action Institute found that 13% fewer med school graduates have applied to Utah residency programs. And this is a trend in the states that restrict abortion. Physician and Democratic Representative Rosemary Lesser says doctors don't want the legislature telling them what's best for their patients.
That's KSL News Radio's Britt Johnson reporting. Your money at this moment: the Dow is up 69 points to 38,640. Coming up, we'll get an update on those earlier delays in Davis County. KSL traffic is next. KSL News Time 1:31.
great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Hi, I'm Rachel Terry, and I'm running for Attorney General. It's not difficult to tell what a person values. All you have to do is look at their record. As your next Attorney General, I promise to value the rule of law, just like I've done as a practicing attorney for the last 20 years. I promise to value transparent leadership. I promise to value the work of the Attorney General's office, just as I've done for other Utah agencies over the past decade. My record speaks for itself. I won't let you down. Vote Rachel Terry for Attorney General.
Paid for by Rachel for Utah.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Summer is finally here, and it's time to take advantage of Zero Res's best deal of the summer. Clean before your barbecues, graduation parties, family reunions, and gatherings that you're hosting to make your guests feel right at home. Call the cleaning pros at Zero Res and get 3 rooms of carpet cleaning starting at just $99. Plus, the 4th room free, and take 20% off your air ducts cleaning. You owe it to yourself, your health, and your home. Schedule your appointment at ZeroRes.com or call 801-288-9376 and ask for the KSL special. Spell it backward or forward. It's the right way to clean. Zero Res.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We are all clear once again southbound I-15 in Davis County from the crashes and delays going from Layton through Kaysville. But we do have Salt Lake City PD wrapping up an accident downtown at 8th South and 3rd East. Fabulous food, atmosphere, and tradition is found at Five All's Restaurant, perfect for a romantic dinner, birthday, or anniversary, or Father's Day, and any celebration. Five All's in Foothill or online at fivealls.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We've got mostly sunny skies this afternoon, headed up to a high of 79 degrees. Tomorrow, even warmer at 89. By the weekend, we'll be in the upper 90s. Right now, you've got 72 degrees under sunny skies. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, we often call out the dysfunction in Congress. We will remain equal opportunity offenders for when things are not being done the way they need to be done, especially when it comes to what Congress is and isn't doing in terms of the things that it is supposed to be doing. The things that are outlined in the Constitution are pretty small. They're pretty specific. We know focus always precedes success, especially when it comes to Congress. And the further afield they get, the more mistakes they make, and the more of your money they tend to spend, and the more debt they rack up for your children and grandchildren. So we want to dig into a little bit, stay with the conversation we were just having with Caitlin Emma from Politico in terms of all the spending crashes and pileup that is coming in terms of expiring tax cuts, debt ceiling, deficit spending, funding of the government, and a few other things that will be thrown in there. So we have to look at where do we create this opportunity for focus? Can focus precede success so that government can actually function better by doing fewer things? Kevin Kosar is someone we always turn to, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, where he studies the U.S. Congress and the administrative state. And Kevin has a great piece in The Hill. Check it out at thehill.com today. And Kevin, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me again.
So you point out in your piece that we've got some new tariffs coming on steel and aluminum. We've got semiconductors and electric vehicles and all kinds of other things that seem to be lining up, some which appear to be 2024 related. And some of those are just if you're in power, you like to spend, and if you're out of power, you like to call out that spending is bad. But you point out in your piece the thing that I think is the most important thing, and that is, what is the role of government, and how do we make sure government's focused on doing what it's supposed to do?
Yeah, we've kind of, over the last 100 years or so, gotten rather confused about the role of the federal government versus the role of the states and local governments. Federalism has been made a hash of, as the federal role has just expanded and expanded. And if you want to get a good look at this, go out to usa.gov/agency-index, and there you will find an A to Z list of all the federal agencies that exist. And it takes forever to scroll through it. It's unbelievable. There are things that you've never heard of, like the Career Technical and Adult Education Office, the National Institute of Arthritis and Musculoskeletal and Skin Diseases. There's just an astonishing amount of stuff, which, how does it all fit together? And why are all these things being done? The answer is, well, over time, various advocates, one way or another, have said, we should get into this. We should work on this problem. So something gets created, another thing gets created, and over until we've got this colossus of federal government.
Yeah, and as you look at that, and it is the ultimate in doom scrolling, I think, to try to get through all the agencies that have been created. And some of those were probably created with the best of intentions, and then they just continue to expand. One of the things you pointed out in your piece that I think is so vital is that there are a lot of self-interested groups that are benefiting from this massive expansion of government trying to do everything and be everything to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing like nefarious. This is not just a giant DC plot to rob Americans blind. This is pluralism.
Yeah.
There are people all over the country. They have different views, different attitudes, different wants, different needs, and they often bring them to Washington, D.C., or they give money to groups that come to Washington, D.C. Take, for example, when I was 16 years old, I was told by my mother, if you want to get free towing in case your secondhand car breaks down, you better sign up for the American Auto Association. So I did. I got a membership. I didn't realize that they lobbied. I didn't realize that they push policy positions in Washington, D.C. They do. AARP, another group I'm now a member of, lucky me, they do the same thing. Groups everywhere come here. You throw a rock in D.C., you're going to hit a group office.
That is absolutely true. We used to say you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a lobbyist for one form or another there in D.C. And so let's look at how we channel this back in just a little bit in terms of what it is that government should be doing, recognizing it can't do everything without complete collapse. That focus, again, is so critical to all of that. And I want to go back. You raised the point of federalism. We're part of the Make Federalism Cool Again crowd out here. And how do we get back to that to recognize, okay, if the federal government's going to do something, it better be in its parameter to do, and it better do it incredibly well and be efficient and actually produce the results that are the desired results of whatever the spending is. How do we get back to a different kind of conversation with all of this spending?
Well, I think first it's to raise the question with the people we elect. As a voter, ask your member of Congress, what are you doing to rebalance federalism? When you see political candidates, if you can send them in, question online or get up to them in person, ask them, what do you think the federal government should be doing and what should go back to the states? If they start hearing this sort of stuff, they'll think, okay, people actually care. If they don't hear it, if all they hear is the group saying, do more at the federal level, they're going to acquiesce to that. So that's one place to start. The other thing that should happen is that conservatives in Congress should work together to create, I hate to say a commission because a commission sounds like something that never works, but create a process whereby you can just start going through all the government agencies, all the tax loopholes, all the old regulations that are no longer needed or are cross-cutting and running contrary to other regulations. Just put these things into a big heap and then vote them up or down. Take a cut at them, defund them, whatever it takes. Just go after them. Everybody bleeds a little bit, but at least you could cull the government back down to a more manageable size, because right now it's just colossal.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great way to look at it in terms of just things that are no longer working. And to me, it always goes back to, what are you afraid of? So, the Democrats, you can say, okay, if you want to be the party of the little guys, then you should want to do an audit of every one of those programs that touch anybody in poverty to make sure there's no waste, fraud, or abuse, and that they're actually producing results so we can hold people accountable. And if not, let's cut there so we can put it somewhere that is making a difference. But it seems to me that it kind of goes back to the lobbying and the group think back there, that everyone is afraid of what happens if I let go, as opposed to let the government do only what it's supposed to do and push those other things back to the states and the communities.
Yeah, and I should mention in my column, I cited as my inspiration a book by Jonathan Rauch called Demosclerosis. And Jonathan Rauch is not a right-wing guy. He's never been a right-wing guy. He's a champion of gay marriage. He's a guy who just wants government to work. And that's his big argument, that if you keep layering more and more responsibilities on agencies and then standing up new agencies and layering lots of responsibilities on them, nothing is going to get done particularly well. Because guess what? We're not actually hiring more bureaucrats. The number of bureaucrats has not gone up in the last 30 years, but we got bigger government. So it's all being outsourced, and there's contracts, and that's a whole mess to manage. It's a lot of paper shuffling and a lot of money spent.
Yeah, so much of that. And we love Jonathan Rauch. He's a good friend of the show. And you're right. He is someone who just wants it to work properly, because that's what is best for we the people, is for government to do really what Lincoln said, that there is a role of government. This is not an anti-government segment, but government is supposed to do those things to clear the path of laudable pursuit for all, to give all an unfettered start and a fair chance, to remove those artificial weights. That's the role, and those very simple things. But when we get so many things and we keep adding, we end up doing nothing very well, and all we do is add more debt and deficit spending, which ultimately hurts the poor and the most vulnerable among us the most. Great perspective. This is a great piece. You want to check it out at The Hill. Kevin Kosar, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Kevin, as always, thanks so much for your perspective.
Thank you, Boyd.
All right, that's Kevin Kosar from AEI, and this is an important one. In fact, we're going to have to get Jonathan Rauch on the program next week. I want to dive into his new book, Demosclerosis, the condition endemic to our free society that we're just going so far afield. Let's just get it working and working right and working for you. Radical concept. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. Over the years, I've talked a lot about hard water takes years off the life of water heaters and other appliances in your home. Leaves scum on the shower walls, and you almost need a jackhammer to remove that. I've talked about how Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer, their water softeners are maintenance-free. You just don't need adjustment, and they do the job with 2/3 less salt than other softeners. But today, I want to talk about the exhilarating feeling of stepping into a hot bath or shower and feeling that pure, soft water cascade over your skin. It feels like every pore in your body wants to stand up and start singing. And afterward, there are no itchy hard water deposits sticking all over you. You really should look into a soft water system from Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. You can learn more about Connecticut by giving them a call at 801-576-8600 or log on to Soft Water Utah. Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. Then sit back and enjoy your shower even more.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio has you covered, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio. Or listen on the KSL News Radio Listen app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio. We have you covered.
Josh loves springtime in Utah, but he hates to paint, so he called Rhino Shield.
We have a cedar-sided home at the edge of the woods, painted
like 1980s beige, and we wanted something that was more of a mid-century and modern look. We were driving around and we saw a sign in somebody's yard and said Rhino Shield. It's not paint.
Rhino Shield ceramic technology is formulated for our unique climate here in Utah and is Class 1 fire rated.
Gave Rhino Shield a call, and in fact, they were fantastic with the arrangement on scheduling. The 25-year guarantee was important to us. This is our forever home, and we want to make sure that whatever we're doing is going to last a long time.
Utah, you can have the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield for 15% off the regular price.
I'd say if you're thinking about Rhino Shield, just do it. It's been 2 years now, and it still looks like the day it went on.
This offer is limited, so call 435-246-4466, 435-246-4466, or rhinoshieldwest.com.
Go Rhino Shield.
The IRS deadline has come and gone. So do you owe money to the IRS? If so, you need an ally. Whether you owe the IRS $6,000 or $600,000, whether your tax problems are personal or business, the professionals at Allies Tax Relief are ready to step in and negotiate your fresh start with the IRS. Here's a happy customer of Allies Tax Relief.
Before calling Allies Tax Relief, I feared the IRS would take all of my assets. I owed them over $562,000. Thankfully, I was referred to Allies and called them for help. They ultimately saved my life from uncertainty. Allies negotiated my giant tax debt to an unbelievable $1,500. They are professionals and they fight the fight for their clients.
Allies Tax Relief will protect your assets from being seized and your paycheck from being garnished. Call right now for your free consultation. 800-296-0772. That's 800-296-0772. Or visit AlliesTaxRelief.com.
You know, in Box Elder County, they're all about the bucket list. Want to go birding at the premier birding destination in the western United States? Well, check off the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. How about land art? The spiral jetty and sun tunnels will leave you inspired. Or stand on the spot where the Union and Central Pacific Railroads joined and forged the destiny of a nation. Yep, Golden Spike National Historical Park is like no other place. Check. Splash, boat, camp, or fish your day away? Willard Bay State Park will guarantee a good time. Soak in a natural hot spring with the highest mineral content in the world? That would be Crystal Hot Springs. You'll feel rejuvenated. Eat at Utah's original steakhouse. Maddox Ranch House is perfection. Check. A 1920s diner. The Idle Owl Cafe will transport you back in time. As you empty your Box Elder County bucket list, you'll find a whole new set of adventures to fill it up again. Fill up your bucket list at visitboxeldercounty.com.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Dave and Dujanovic.
If you're driving to work or you're driving the kids to a soccer game, we're your in-car companions.
People will come up to me and say, "Oh, I talk to you every day. You don't realize it because I'm talking at the radio, but I talk to you every day."
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio. The Good Feet Store, the life you love, starts here.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, President Biden announced executive action on the southern border today, promising migrants who enter illegally cannot get asylum. Second, a road rage fistfight in Lehigh has turned deadly after the victim suffered a traumatic brain injury. And third, a new law that enhances penalties for road rage in Utah will take effect on July 1st. It also makes it easier for law enforcement to track road rage. Right now, sunny, 72 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, in the midst of all the other political happenings and comings and goings, last Friday we covered the announcement given by President Biden that he gave as the latest path to peace and a ceasefire in the devastation of war between Israel and Hamas. The plan included multiple phases of negotiation and hostage exchange, a withdrawal of Israeli troops. However, Israel and Hamas seem to have a little differing view in terms of what the deal is or was or who agreed to what when. And so we need to get to the bottom of that to make sure we understand what's really going on. And as we often do and so often rely on Robert Sherman, national correspondent for News Nation, who has really been our eyes and ears and great thinker in Israel in so many of these situations. And Robert joins us today actually on this side of the water in our nation's capital. And Robert, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, as you watch things play out on Friday with the press conference that the speech really that the president delivered, that was quite forceful, by the way. Other than the few moments he got off track on the former president's legal troubles in New York, it was a pretty interesting speech from the president in terms of what he laid out. But what's your sense in terms of how that's being received both in Israel and by Hamas inside of Gaza?
Well, I would tell you that the most important telltale sign that we're looking at here, Boyd, is that the conversations are still ongoing, which, considering where we've been in recent months, where there have been times in which these talks have been stone cold, the fact that there is actually some kind of a dialogue taking place is not something to look past here. Israel has put a proposal together, which the United States says that they do feel confident in, as they believe that it is pretty close to what President Biden has been articulating here, and this has been passed off to Qatari mediators. But Qatar came out today and said, there needs to be more firm details from all parties, and there needs to be a bit more of a resolute perspective as to exactly where we go from here. And I would say that the important thing here, Boyd, is there's still this one issue that needs to be resolved here. There is disagreement between Israel and the United States on what happens once the war is over. What does Gaza look like on the other side of it? That's an important aspect here, is that the president wants this to be parlayed eventually into a two-state solution. Israel's still not ready to have that conversation yet. They're very concerned about national security and what a sovereign Palestinian state would look like, and if that would give them the ability to have weapons just a few miles away from Tel Aviv here, which is a concern that the United States even acknowledges as well. So there's still a long way to go here, but the fact that these talks are still ongoing is a good sign.
Yeah, no question that it is far better than where we have been for the last few months, especially. As you look at that and break that down, obviously that day after component is going to be a big piece. Does it become, as you mentioned, that parlay into the two-state solution? And this is where I think it gets a little tricky in terms of negotiating with a nation state like Israel and dealing with a group, really a terrorist group in terms of Hamas. How are they going to navigate that component to it? Because it seems to me that's going to be the one place that's going to be really hard to get some resolution.
Yeah, I mean, this just underscores the fact here, Boyd, that fundamentally these two groups do not trust one another. And I mean, even further, Hamas certainly does not trust the United States as a mediator. Israel does not trust Qatar as a mediator. So, I mean, there's just no trust across the board here, which makes all of this very sticky and very difficult. And so that's where you have, the concerns that both of these sides have here as to how to make sure each side adheres to their word. A big thing the United States has been focusing on is that they want this to get to a two-state solution here. But what I would remind people is that Hamas and Palestine are not necessarily synonymous terms at all. You have Fatah in the West Bank, which is a political party that has their own ideology and their own perspectives. And then Hamas has a very different perspective of what the region should look like here. So, I mean, as you said, it gets very complicated. It's not like you're negotiating with Cuba or you're negotiating with Russia. You are negotiating with different groups. Hamas has a political bureau in Qatar, then they have a military bureau in Gaza, who are not necessarily always on the same page either. It's not easy. It is not as simple as a lot of people would like to paint it to be.
Yeah, one of the things that President Biden pointed out in his speech on Friday and doubled down early this week in terms of what's happening inside of Israel, that there are some of those inside the Israeli government who clearly benefit from the war continuing on, and that there are some who are might want to submarine this a little bit for political posturing and power. How is that shaking out? We know there were some big rallies over the weekend inside of Israel. Give us a sense of what you're hearing from your sources.
Right. And this is something that people have been talking about here. You had President Biden coming out today at that press briefing about the border, in which he was asked if he thinks that Prime Minister Netanyahu is playing politics here. And the president clarified some of his previous comments and says he doesn't think Prime Minister Netanyahu is necessarily. Now, that being said, you look at some of the polling data that is coming out of Israel here. there is a plurality of voters in Israel, according to one recent survey that came out, that believes that Prime Minister Netanyahu would be best served to lead the country going forward over Benny Gantz. We have not seen that since October 7th.
Wow.
And I think there's a dynamic here to mention, Boyd, is that on the one hand, Israelis are very upset about October 7th, how this happened, accountability. They want to ensure that this doesn't happen again. But there's another aspect here is that Israel is looking at a geopolitical climate in which the average Israeli believes, aside from the United States, they don't have many friends on the international stage. And in a tough geopolitical climate like that, at the end of the day, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is one of the few people in Israel who they believe, A, has the chops, and B, the experience in order to navigate those treacherous waters. So there's a lot of people who say that maybe he's not the best person, is not their ideal candidate, but they don't really know who else to turn to right now. It's just that there just aren't a lot of people with that kind of experience in the Israeli government or in that political ecosystem. So it's a tough situation to navigate.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's also interesting that you really have, between the Netanyahu government and Hamas, you really have two organizations that, if all of this gets resolved, they're both likely to be out of power pretty soon. That makes negotiations a really tricky thing.
Yeah, it most certainly does. I mean, and certainly, I mean, as we've watched over the last few months, the approval rating of Prime Minister Netanyahu has increased. I would tell people this, is that you see those scenes taking place in Tel Aviv and the demonstrations there, yet just in my experience, that is not a majority opinion in Israel, that the war should be ended immediately. I mean, you go out to the countryside of Israel, believe me, there are a lot of people who want that war to continue on because they're afraid that October 7th being repeated is an inevitability. You go to northern Israel along the Lebanese border, and I mean, there are people there who want Israel to open up a second front with Lebanon because they don't feel safe returning to their homes. You know, so I mean, yes, I mean there is a strong demonstration presence in Tel Aviv, and there are a lot of people who would like to see the war end today to get the hostages home, but there are a lot of people who don't. It's again a very tricky situation to navigate here, you know, politically in Israel, as there's obviously a lot riding on the decisions that are made in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, no question about it. And the fact that we still have hostages being held under no circumstances is that acceptable anywhere. So that becomes an interesting dynamic to all of that as well. Robert Sherman, national correspondent for News Nation. He's the best of the best and brings us the greatest insight and unique perspective in terms of everything happening in the Middle East there. Robert, as always, we appreciate you carving out some time for us. Great to have you on American soil, and I hope you get a little exhale as you continue to do extraordinary work there. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Boyd. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Robert Sherman from News Nation. And when it comes to this whole Israel-Hamas Gaza situation, there's nobody better than Robert Sherman, and that's why we bring him on the show, to give you some of the things that you haven't thought about or some things that we all need to think again about. Well, we'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll pick up with hour number 2 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Becky Bruce. We begin with breaking news. Police have identified a man who died in a road rage shooting in Clearfield as 63-year-old James Siccato from West Point. Police are still investigating the series of events that led up to that shooting. They do say the other driver is cooperating with police. The victim involved in a road rage fight in Lehigh over the weekend has passed away. His family says Michael Brown died after suffering a traumatic brain injury.
I think it's been doubly hard on the boys, in part because they were present when the incident took place.
KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas there acting as the family spokesperson. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden fired back at critics who say he's weak on the border, announcing a series of executive actions meant to curb the influx.
The simple truth is there is a worldwide migrant crisis. And if the United States doesn't secure our border, there's no limit to the number of people may try to come here.
The actions mean border entry could be shut down at midnight tonight because the number of migrants in the last 7 days is over 2,500. Your money at this moment: the Dow up 140 points, the S&P 500 up 8, the NASDAQ up 28. Coming up, we've got emergency traffic on I-15. We're going to check in with Ricky Meese next. KSL News Time 2:01.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Odds are, if you have a 401k, it's set up with your payroll provider or an insurance company. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and if you're using your payroll provider or an insurance company for your 401k, the employer may be overpaying for the plan, the employees may have blasé investment options, and those blasé investment options may cost more than they should. Not with Trajan Wealth. Call us today, 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Services offered through a third-party partner.
In Utah, we don't make excuses. We work hard. We do what's right. We get it done. Washington, D.C. could learn a lesson from Utah and from Republican John Curtis. John Curtis is our first line of defense against Joe Biden's policies that have made life harder in Utah. In Congress, John's known as the get-it-done guy. He passed 15 bills that make us safer and stronger. John Curtis is reducing regulations so Utah small businesses can grow and you can afford your energy bills. And as always, he's fighting for American energy dominance as our champion for affordable, reliable, and clean energy. When Utah thrives, America thrives. John Curtis knows that, and in the U.S. Senate, he'll teach Washington how we do it in Utah. John Curtis, working hard and getting it done the Utah way. ClearPath Action Fund paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. ClearPathActionFund.org.
The KSL News Radio Movie Show comes to My Hearing Centers this Friday from 10 to 1. But first, discover what My Hearing Centers can do for you. My Hearing Centers uses advanced technology to diagnose and treat hearing loss. These comprehensive evaluations determine the best treatment options. Then enjoy lifetime support with regular check-ins, cleaning, and maintenance. Call My Hearing Centers at 801-701-1629. 801-701-1629 for more details. My Hearing Centers has offices from Ogden to St. George.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. It is emergency traffic, and we go to Ricky Meese.
Our first spot of trouble is northbound I-15 near 2100 South. You have right lanes blocked with a multiple vehicle accident. That is causing heavy delays through South Salt Lake. Now we have an accident northbound I-15 in Draper near 146 South. It is blocking a fast lane, a left lane of travel, not the HOV lane, and that's also starting to cause delays. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
No emergencies with the weather right now. You got mostly sunny skies, a high of 79 in the forecast today, and then tomorrow up to 89 degrees, also with sunny skies. Right now, fair and 72. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, we know at the heart of the American experiment lies the powerful idea that a free society depends not just on institutions, but the character of its people. We've been talking a lot about the role of government, the size, the cost, the impact. Does government have a big purpose? Is it part of the pursuit of happiness that has been the central part of the American experiment? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
You know, as we talked earlier in the show, a lot of complaints about big government, a lot of complaints about too much government. We talked about the scrolling of all the agencies, and it takes you a long time to scroll through them all. So what is it that government should be doing? What is it supposed to be doing? And what did the founders really intend for that role of government? I believe government does have a role to play, an important role to play. Really pleased to have joining us on the program Lisa Halverson, Civics Education and Research Fellow at Utah Valley University Center for Constitutional Studies, a fantastic piece at Deseret.com. Government is the last great experiment for promoting human happiness. And Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I love the tee up to your piece at Deseret.com talking about President Reagan's famous line of the most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And you go on to frame this because I think this is so important. It's so easy to think that it's about just cutting big government, but that's really not what it's all about. And so should we be terrified of government?
You know, I really think we should not. The framers founded a new government, and they did it with, I believe, some real wisdom. They looked at humans, and they knew we were not perfect. They knew we could be selfish. They knew we could be, focused on our own good, and they felt that they would create a government that could help us be our best selves. And they felt that there was, a system, a set of institutions that would help that way. And at the same time, they knew that it also had to be with us. So I'm not saying it's just about government, and I'm not saying it's just about us, but we need to be working together. That's what our founders and our framers wanted.
Yeah, I love that. That's the think again moment for the day, is that it's not this fake fight and false choice. It's not either or. It's not just you're on your own, tough it out, you're an American, or the government's going to take care of you from cradle to grave. That's a false choice.
Right.
I love your quote in there from George Washington calling the establishment of the new government the last great experiment for promoting human happiness. Dig into that a little bit. You went into some of the other founders in terms of why this combination of government and individuals is the secret sauce to the country.
Yes, it is. We here at the Center for Constitutional Studies, we have a civics team, and we think a lot about civic knowledge. How are we going to increase American civic knowledge? Just this morning, I was working with third grade teachers. Elementary school teachers are generalists, and now they need to teach about the First Amendment and the Constitution. And so we want to improve their civic knowledge so that they can improve their students. We talk about civic skills. Do you know how to write a letter? Do you know how to get yourself registered to vote? Do you know how to speak for something that's important to you? We talk about civic dispositions. We're a pluralistic society, and that's not just like a 21st century thing. That's what our founders and our framers knew, that we'd have a pluralistic society. And then civic virtues, maybe not a term we use quite as often in our K-12 education, but the founders definitely were talking about it. They were talking about we need to be courageous, we need to be humble, we need to have integrity, we need to stand up for justice. And they felt that these grounding ourselves, if the citizens could have these civic virtues, then we had so much of a greater chance to succeed in this experiment, this last great experiment for promoting human happiness.
Yeah, it's so important that we look at this, and this was another part that I just loved about your piece, is that in order for that government to be sustained, that freedom to be upheld, that the people, we the people, had to be a combination of things: vigilant, informed, and virtuous. That's quite a trifecta in today's world, where not a lot of people, I haven't heard a single campaign ad run on this station today that talked about being vigilant, informed, and virtuous. And
right.
we love to get to the pursuit of happiness, piece of the puzzle. But I think we missed that too, because to the founders, that really was based on virtue, that they knew that happiness was most likely to be achieved through virtue, through serving one another, and through looking out for your neighbor.
Yes, it's true. It's very true.
And so as you look at some of those things that the framers were putting into place, and in terms of how we can get that civic virtue as a more front and center conversation in our world today. What are the things that we should be thinking about in context of those very character traits?
I'm sorry, did you say what should we be thinking? Was it a statement or a question?
Yeah. As we the people, what should we be doing a little bit different or thinking a little bit different?
Well, I mean, the very definition of civic virtue is that we put the public good ahead of our own good. And I think that's, one of the most important things. I told a story of a friend who's works in the Foreign Service and who let me know, like, even if I like something political you posted, even if personally I agree, I will not publicly show a like or a dislike. I need to appear nonpartisan. I need to be representing the country, not a leader, not a party. And that individual said, this is important enough to me. I have taken an oath to the Constitution. And, the little buzz that I get when I put up things and somebody likes them, or when I like something that's popular that other people are liking, that is not important enough as saying, I represent the American people, all of them, and so we need to be placing the good of others ahead of just our own personal desires and wishes.
Yeah, so when that commitment to country over party or platform or whatever it may be, or just our own attention, I think is the real key to all of this. I love the work that is being done down there at Utah Valley University at the Center for Constitutional Studies. You're gathering, you're convening, you're really engaging in some crucial conversations, and so many of them bring us back to our role as we the people. Are we willing to put the good of the community ahead? Doesn't mean we don't have rigorous debate. That's when we're at our best.
Sure.
We have those big open debates, and then we all link arms and move forward together. And
right.
Again, that vigilant, informed, and virtuous nature of what we have to get to is so vital. Fantastic piece. Lisa Halverson, Civics Education and Research Fellow at Utah Valley University Center for Constitutional Studies. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Some really great insight there. You're going to want to go check out Lisa's piece at Deseret.com. And it is around this whole idea of happiness, this pursuit of happiness. And does government have a role in all of that? I think it's interesting. You can go back to those founding documents, and you'll find that we love to quote the pursuit of happiness, thinking it's an excuse for us to do whatever we want or whatever feels good to us. But that is not the definition that the founders were functioning under. It's not what they believed. They believed it was about having that kind of civic virtue where you had integrity, you had character, you were vigilant, you were informed, you were virtuous, and you were making sure that we were all working together for the common good to bring about a more perfect union. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Utah's school vouchers.
10,000 of these kids are using this scholarship.
Facing a UEA lawsuit.
The voucher program has siphoned off $82 million.
David DeGenovic have you covered.
Help me and our listeners understand why this is a violation of the Utah State Constitution.
Weekdays at 9 on KSL News Radio.
Curious about stem cells? Stem cell therapy is revolutionizing the medical industry. Tony Robbins, Joe Rogan, Mel Gibson, all talking about the benefits, helping to repair damaged tissues, supporting healthy inflammatory response, and improving recovery times for a variety of conditions including chronic pain, injuries, hair loss, and skin care. It provides a promising alternative to traditional surgical procedures. Stem cell therapy may be the right choice for you. Stop by for an evening of education on stem cell therapy, the features and benefits, this Thursday at 6 p.m. at the Hyatt in Lehigh. Tickets are $20 at the door, or register for free at eventbrite.com and search for stem cell therapy, or call 866-STEM-EVENT. Stop by an evening of education on stem cells. Register for free admission at eventbrite.com Eventbrite.com. Just search for stem cell therapy or call 866-STEM-EVENT. This Thursday, 6 p.m. at the Hyatt in Lehigh.
My name is J.R. Bird. As mayor of Roosevelt, I increased transparency, led the charge to pass term limits, and kept taxes low. As your congressman, I will leverage my experience in the energy sector to champion energy independence and dominance. I'm determined to defend the unborn, secure our borders, uphold our Second Amendment rights, and bring the same level of transparency that we've upheld locally. I hope to earn your support.
Paid for by Bird for Congress.
Do you know how to tell if a clogged drain is something to worry about or not? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I understand it's annoying and inconvenient, but sometimes a clogged drain can be a sign there's a more serious issue with your sewer main line. If the drains in the lowest level of your home aren't draining, or you flush a toilet and it comes up somewhere else like a shower or a floor drain, I'm urging you to look at this as more than just an annoyance. The last thing I want you to experience is a sewer backup. If you're a homeowner experiencing any of these issues, the first step would be to snake the line to see if it's just a blockage, which one of our drain techs can do for only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word INBOX to 57500. That's INBOX to 57500.
How many of you have been waiting months or even years to get a crown, but don't have $1,200 to $1,500 to get one? Only Crowns offers same-day crowns at a fraction of the cost of your dentist. Plus, you're in and out in under 90 minutes. Save your money and save your time with Only Crowns. They provide an unmatched lifetime warranty. No dental insurance? No problem. Don't let the price of a crown keep you from enjoying good dental health. Only Crowns is here, and there's nothing like it anywhere in Utah. Done fast, done right, just $6.99 per tooth. They'll offer a limited exam, all the x-rays needed, plus a full zirconia crown with a lifetime warranty and no hidden fees. No one else offers that, and it's yours with Only Crowns. Visit Only Crowns next to Shields and Sandy or online at onlycrowns.com and get details, including how to score a Stanley mug for the first 100 appointments, along with a chance to win an electric bike. No purchase necessary. Onlycrowns.com. That's onlycrowns.com.
Ooh, ma. What was that? That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to run my business more efficiently, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business calm at ooma.com/radio.
Put your phone on D&D. That means that do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always sing with me. So put your phone on D&D. That means that do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always remember this beat.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Boyd Matheson.
Listening to Inside Sources is a little different from just reading the headlines because we're always going to get you into that think again moment. We have experts from around the country, across the world, and right here local to home that'll help us dive in and get past just the hype, the fluff, the fake fights, and the false choice so we can get into the news to help you connect the dots and make the news make sense.
Join Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, Clearfield police are still investigating a road rage shooting that left 1 man dead. They identified the victim as James Siccato. Second, a case of road rage that turned into a fist fight in Lehigh has also become deadly. His family says Michael Brown suffered a traumatic brain injury. Third, President Biden announcing executive actions on immigration. They cap how many migrants can cross the southern border in a 7-day period. Right now, sunny, 72 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Well, very late last week, the Biden administration very quietly expanded some of the support for Ukrainian military efforts to turn the tide of the war against Russia. In a change of policy, U.S. supplied weapons will be used in targeted strikes inside of Russian territory. There's a lot of fine print in there that is troublesome to me. However, as this war drags on into another summer, that's what I want to get to today. What is the summer going to look like? I think it's a crucial one. And Ukraine is obviously dwindling in manpower. It's a war of attrition in so many ways. It's been such a slog of meters and feet and inches at a time. Will there be enough in terms of support from the U.S. and from other allies to change the game during this season, this summer season, which is so important in terms of positioning on the battlefield? As always, we turn to our good friend, Army Colonel retired Jonathan Sweet, served 30 years as a military intelligence officer and is a contributor to the Kyiv Post, also in The Hill very often. And a great piece in the Kyiv Post talking about where the administration is and what that is actually going to mean on the battlefield. And Colonel Sweet, welcome back to the show.
Hey, boy, thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it.
All right. So as we look at this very soft and subtle shift there from the administration in terms of, okay, you can fire some of these U.S. weapons inside of Russian territory. It's got to be in this region for these particular purposes. Is this really an advance? And what are the dynamics in terms of how this will impact the war?
So I think the short answer is it's an advance. It's a bit of advance, but as Mark and I said in the Kyiv Post this morning, it's really more just enough. It's the minimum amount that they can provide to satisfy the requirement, and the requirement is taking care of Russian forces on the other side of the border that present a threat to them. But it's as you said, it's the munitions and it's the restrictions that are placed upon them. It's limited strikes for counter-fire purposes only, and against Russian forces that are preparing to attack them. So that's short-sighted. I think it still puts Ukraine in a position of reaction, and it still gives the initiative to Moscow.
Yeah, and let's unpack that just a little bit, because you've
Sure.
had such a great ability to help our listeners understand kind of what the battlefront looks like and why it's important to be able to not just do that inch by inch, yard by yard, trench by trench kind of warfare, clearing landmines and razor wire and all of those kinds of things. Just walk us through why it's so important to be able to get a little further range firepower so that the Ukrainian forces actually could push Russia back or make some of those advances.
Yeah, so we'll talk 2 battles. The first battle is the close battle. That's the direct fire battle. That's the battle to the trenches. Just what you said, clearing trench lines, negotiating through obstacles, minefields, in that close-in fight. Then there's the second battle, which is the deeper battle, the deep fight we call it, which is the war of interdiction. It's in a sense affecting the forces on the battlefield that are going to be in the fight the second or the third day. So if you can affect that, if you can stop that, you can create space for your soldiers that are fighting in the trenches. So they don't have to continue to fight that fight every day. And right now what Ukraine's doing is that they're fighting that fight every day. Every day there's multiple attacks on their positions. Every day they repel them, and the next day it comes at them again, and it comes at them again. So as long as you can't stop the flow of forces coming in, it's Groundhog Day. And you get to a point of exhaustion, physical exhaustion. You get to a point of exhaustion of ammunition. And then you get to the point of low morale. It's just it never stops coming. So you have to free up space. You have to affect Russia's ability to impact that fight.
Yeah, and it seems to me that there's finally some vision in terms of that from some of the allies that are slowly changing. You pointed this out in your piece in the key post that people are starting to say, hey, if we can't just play this enough game anymore, we've either got to give them a position and the ability to not just fight that Groundhog Day fight, which really looks more like World War I, World War II stuff.
Absolutely.
If we can't get to the how do you win, then this really is a losing cause in the end.
Yeah, we really are stuck on how do you win. And the other thing with the interdiction fight is if you're able to prevent them from resupplying their front lines, you're able to isolate and cut them off. Then you get to a position where you're regaining terrain without having to fire a shot, because chances are an exhausted Russian force without ammunition is going to submit also. The other fight that's taking place, of course, is the deeper fight, which is the fight that's going on in Crimea, which is where we are seeing ATACMS play a role, where we are seeing Shadow and Scout missiles playing roles, along with deep strikes at Ukrainian missiles. So slowly but surely, Crimea is beginning to become, as General Hodges would say, untenable, to the point where it's costing Russia military lives and equipment to stay on the peninsula. So you have those two fights going on right now. And as General Hodges would say, Crimea is the decisive terrain of the battle, because primarily Crimea controls the Black Sea, and Russia does not want to give that up.
Yeah, that is a crucial piece of the puzzle. And then just finally, before I let you go, give us a sense in terms of what else you're watching for as we enter this summer season. We know that is the optimal time in terms of attempting attack, counterattack, or some particular strategy. What are you keeping your eye on, and what do you expect to see as we roll through this season?
Yeah, so my first thought is the flow of F-16s as they come into the battle. What their impact's going to be in the close fight, where it's going to be in the deeper fight. So that's critical. The next piece is those 800,000 rounds that the Czech Republic has purchased and is going to provide the Ukrainian forces, how that's integrated. And then the third piece, as you said, it's just a manpower piece of whether or not Ukraine's actually going to call up those 25, 27-year-olds, the additional 100,000 soldiers, and commit them to the fight. And then more importantly, where are they going to commit them? Yeah,
such an important thing. And this really is one of those that sadly I think Ukraine will run out of energy before they run out of opportunity. We know that Russia is gaining strength in this process when really if it was not just this just enough strategy, it may be a little different war at this point in the program. As always, Colonel Jonathan Sweet, we appreciate your perspective. Great piece in the Kyiv Post, and we'll continue to monitor this closely as we enter this summer season and see the impact of both what is happening from the administration standpoint, also what other allies are doing and how that might impact both the battlefield, what Ukraine's position is, and what U.S. policy continues to be. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back on board.
Great perspective there, as always, from Jonathan Sweet. We're going to step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. We're going to take a look at this grievance culture that we've been talking about, how it's splashing over into the culture of sports and what that's doing to the rest of the nation. Stick around. We'll be right back.
2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Becky Bruce. KSL's top local story this hour. A new law that beefs up penalties for road rage in Utah takes effect July 1st, nearly a month after two different cases of road rage turned deadly in the state. The Utah Department of Public Safety says we saw an 11% jump in road rage crashes last year from the year before.
To a total of 805 incidents that are road rage related. That's an increase over 716 the prior year before.
Commissioner Jess Anderson telling KSL News Radio at the time it's been a growing problem, especially since the beginning of the pandemic. The man accused of hitting and killing a Santaquin police sergeant with his semi was reportedly using meth and acting paranoid at the time. Court documents say the woman with Michael Jane confirmed they stopped at a truck truck stop on the way north on I-15 to ingest meth before the death of Sergeant Bill Hoosier. Jane is charged with aggravated murder. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden announcing a series of executive actions aimed at border security today. One measure would cap entries at the southern border at 2,500 over a 7-day period. Another would forbid migrants who enter illegally from seeking asylum. CEOs are making more money. Their compensation packages rose an average of 13% last year. Your money at this moment, the Dow ends the day up 140 points at 38,711. Coming up, the afternoon commute is already looking rough. KSL News Radio's traffic report is next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
You know, I just love it when something clicks. And many of you know I carried around way too much weight for way too long after my stint in Washington, D.C., and then everything changed. What clicked? For me, it was SOTA Weight Loss. SOTA stands for state-of-the-art weight loss. Having my own nutritionist and coach every step of the way, it clicked. Not worrying about counting or mixing things, it clicked. Breaking bad emotional eating habits, it just clicked. You know what else clicked? My belt. I lost 37 pounds in 90 days, and as the pounds and inches fell off, my belt started to click a lot. You can do the same thing. In fact, you can get going right away. If you just click one simple button, sodaweightloss.com, you can save 15%. It's incredible. Just click Request a Nutritionist Callback, and a SOTA nutritionist will call you back and be on the line before you know it. It just clicks. As I always say, there's no time to lose. There's only time to win. So start winning. It clicked for me. It'll click for you. So take a click today at State of the Art Weight Loss, SOTAweightloss.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
Gotta change my oil.
How about new Valvoline Restore and Protect? It restores and protects your engine to run like new.
Get in zone.
It restores your engine to like factory clean?
And protects.
Get in zone.
So Valvoline Restore and Protect restores and protects.
Now you can get 5 quarts with an STP extended life oil filter for $37.99.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Gabby.
Hey, Gabby. It's Jennifer Coolidge. Hi. I'm so glad I reached you at 2 a.m.
Oh, of course. Anyone with a Discover card can call and talk to a real person 24/7. Now, how can I help?
Yeah, I used my Discover card to buy these yellow pleather pajamas, and I'm just not sure I'm pulling them off.
24/7 U.S.-based customer service. It pays to Discover. Limitations apply. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard.
You know, Deb, you and I have had this conversation so many times. We think, oh, I wish I had a little more light here or maybe a ceiling fan there.
That's why we love Master Electrical. So anytime we have an electrical problem, we know we can call them and they will give us their upfront pricing guarantee.
Because we're not going to do it yourself. We're going to leave it to the professionals. And this upfront pricing guarantee is fantastic. I'm sure you've been bitten by bids in the past where they say, oh, that's going to take half a day. And then 2 weeks later, the bid and the invoice have nothing to do with each other.
Not only will you get their upfront pricing guarantee, but you will never see an upcharge. Their pricing system simply won't allow it.
Master Electrical proudly serves from Logan to Santaquin.
They do everything that has to do with electrical, and they're always open, including for emergency services. The phone number to call is 801-543-2222.
801-543-2222, or check them out online at masterelectrical.com.
Emergency traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Left lanes blocked northbound I-15 near 146 south going from Bluffdale into Draper due to an accident that's been there for about a half an hour. However, they show no signs of being ready to open up those left lanes of travel, and that means we have stop-and-go delays reaching the point of the mountain. Now, the crash that we had northbound I-15 near 2100 south in the cleanup stages out of traffic on the shoulder. Get ready for memorable summer evenings with the Utah Symphony, July 5th through August 9th in Park City. Tickets are on sale now at DeerValleyMusicFestival.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Today is the coolest of the next 7 with a high of 79. Tomorrow, 89, upper 90s by the weekend. Right now, 73 degrees. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we always say, we only talk about politics so we can explore society, and we explore society so we can talk about the principles and the people in America who actually live them. And one of those places where I often find those principles is in sports. That has so many great lessons for us that go across business and community and family. And sports was once hailed as the great unifier in our communities, capable of bridging divides. The world of sports now finds itself mired in the same kind of toxic polarization that's also affecting our society. And whether it's on the stadium or in the diamond, that delicate balance between that good, healthy civic pride versus the destructive tribalism, we're entering some pretty troubled waters when it comes to that. And so we want to dig into this in a unique way. And we found a fantastic piece this morning at the Washington Post. Jerry Brewer is a sports columnist at the Washington Post, and he brings this idea that we've been talking about, grievance mentality, and how grievance has actually splintered American sports in some ways that should be concerning, but also might be the path back, not just for sports, but for society. And Jerry, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
This is a fabulous piece. Everyone needs to go check this out at the Washington Post today. You start by really kind of laying the groundwork in terms of, how sports used to be that great unifier. You could be sitting next to a total stranger, and suddenly you were best friends, even if they were cheering for the other team. And now we seem to have lost that, and it's not necessarily because of a political party or even a specific politician, but there's a lot underneath that. Describe that for us.
Yeah, I've always referred to the sports experience as friendly conflict. And when we talk about hate in sports, it's kind of sports hate. I just don't like you because you wear a different color jersey, and I'm rooting for the opposite laundry. But right now, I do think, we tend to think that sports is this happy place that's walled off from society that we can go to escape. However, truly what sports is it's just a microcosm of society, a highly emotional microcosm of society in which people's daily work lives play out in front of thousands, tens of thousands when we're talking about professional sports and major college sports. So a lot of the problems that we have in society are inevitably going to spill over into the sports arena, especially when you're talking about athletes who have kind of run the gamut, right, from rags to riches. So many of them came from poverty and became what we would consider rich, if not wealthy people. And so, and yet, because they are often from marginalized groups, they don't fully escape. Their wealth doesn't fully dismiss them from where they came from. And so I think people have to remember that when they think about all the things that are at play in sports.
Yeah, no question about that. And it's so interesting. You gave some really fascinating examples of how just the lunacy that we often see play out on cable news networks is splashing over. And so we've lost that galvanizing spirit that sports has often played in our society, even down to someone's, Taylor Swift and a football player in Travis Kelce having a romance that suddenly became a conspiracy theory leading up to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, conspiracy for the Chiefs to win, and so that Taylor can continue to spread pro-Biden messages and help him get reelected. That was the conversation the week of the Super Bowl, so much so that the NFL commissioner, Roger Goodell, had to talk about it. And he went from trying to make a joke about it to the questions were so serious that he became very frustrated and dismissive of the entire conversation. And it's just indicative of how bizarre things are in sports right now and in society at large.
Yeah, and it's so interesting too. Again, so many people have so. It used to be we locked our identities into whether you were a Boston Red Sox fan or if you were a New York Yankees fan, and you kind of had that. And even though it was the hate the laundry as you described it, I love that. And now it's gotten to so many places. Like I see people who say, oh, I can't root for the American soccer team because so and so has an agenda, or this person's trying to advocate for that. And so even things like the Olympics that used to be the really great unifier of sport and nation, even that now has become part of a whole laundry list of grievances.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember in 2019 when Megan Rapinoe had her dominant run, helping the U.S. win the World Cup, and it was Trump versus Rapinoe, and then beyond that, it was sort of Trump and Trump supporters and people who didn't believe in equal pay, which is what that women's team was fighting for at the time. So all of a sudden they became polarizing instead of us just celebrating their dominance on the field of play. Yeah. And that was just something that I kind of filed away because it was much bigger than it was the star player versus the president. It was kind of opening the door to some other societal stuff that you saw. So I filed that away. But really, things just exploded in 2020, especially during the pandemic summer, which was crazy because we were without sports for about 3 or 4 months there. And when they returned and post-George Floyd, all of the displays of whether it was the Black Lives Matter movement or the Black Lives Matter sentiment against police brutality and police lethality, all of the displays there really created this battleground. Yeah. And you had to take a side, essentially. And it was much different than in 2017 when Trump went after protesting NFL players, the Colin Kaepernick and the like. And it just kind of exploded into on through into the election year, and then everything quieted down. Yeah, a new president, someone who wasn't as combative against sports stars. I think in the realm of professional athletics, they were in a mode of recovery because they had lost so much money during that pandemic period that everyone just kind of focused on the game. However, this other stuff didn't go away. You had Aaron Rodgers and his misinformation, especially in his body autonomy when it came to vaccines. And I remember when Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and that NCAA tournament championship game really became this racial culture war. And you even go now into Harrison Butker, the kicker who gave the speech, the Kansas City Chiefs kicker who gave the speech that was very problematic. And constantly you just see the airing of these grievances, which is different than the moment of protest, which protest was very specifically about a certain thing. These grievances are about, don't you want America to be the way I think it should be, the way it used to be. Yeah. And it's really interesting to see it playing out in the sports arena all the way to what I think is the most difficult story, which is transgender sports participation.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I love the way in your piece you talked about these three factions that dominate the landscape: the apolitical, the aggrieved, and the activist. And I loved your framing in terms of grievance stands as a dreadful foil for activism. This is just a fantastic piece. There's so many things to think, again, about what we think we know. And I hope it is a space that we can reclaim that sports space, not as a place for just grievance, but a place to galvanize and to bring community, to bring country together. Really fabulous piece. Check it out at the Washington Post today. Jerry Brewer, sports columnist there at the Washington Post. And Jerry, we appreciate you making some time for us today. Great stuff.
Oh, anytime. Thank you, man.
All right. That's Jerry Brewer again from the Washington Post. And there's so many things that we can learn from sports. Again, we got Olympic Games coming up. If we get lost in the grievance stuff, We'll never get to the galvanizing moments that I think are important for our communities, and they're very important for the future of our country. We'll be right back.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
The sun is out and the temps are up. It's time to seize the day and hit the road. You were born to ride, and now's the time to make your dreams a reality. Imagine the wind in your hair as you cruise on your very own power scooter. Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical, and these scooters aren't just for getting around. They're your ticket to freedom. With speeds up to 6 miles per hour, you'll own the road like never before. From graduation to concerts and vacations, our power scooters will get you there in style and ease. Don't wait another minute. The time to ride is now. Let's start your adventure today. Visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Springtime in Utah, and if you hate to paint, do what your neighbor Judy did. She called Rhino Shield.
After having the house painted with kind of usual house paint, I was seeing cracks appearing about every 3 years and just wasn't very satisfied with that.
Rhino Shield ceramic technology is formulated for our unique climate here in Utah and is Class 1 fire rated.
I can't speak highly enough about the Rhino Shield crew. They also were great at working with me to get the exact right color because I was very particular.
Utah, you too can have the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield for 15% off the regular price.
I would not hesitate to call Rhino Shield, and I am just thrilled to recommend Rhino Shield to my friends and neighbors and family.
This offer is limited. Call 435-246-4466, 435-246-4466, or rhinoshieldwest.com.
Go Rhino Shield.
Trail mix, beef jerky, mixing all the soda flavors at the gas station soda machine. Snacks are better on the road. The gas is better when it's top tier. And the pit stop is better when there's a dinosaur there. Love the filler moments at a Sinclair gas station near you with DinoCare, our top-tier gasoline. Some sweet and salty snacks for the commute, and a big green dino for the memories. Find a gas station near you at sinclairoil.com. Sinclair, fill up your life.
If you need bold banners to boost your business, but you're on a budget, think Staples. Because now at Staples, you can save up to $50 on your print purchase. From posters and flyers to signs and menus, Staples can print anything you need to move your business forward. And with Staples Print Perfect Guarantee, it's done right or it's printed again free. Plus, same-day service is available on hundreds of items if you order by noon. Get it printed right at Staples. And now get up to $50 off your print purchase. N76, visit staples.com/print for details.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up! And call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
Have you ever thought about what it would be like to sleep under the most magnificent blanket of stars? Picnic in the middle of gorgeous Red Rock, watching Tony Award-winning plays in a grand outdoor theater. Have you ever hiked through a legendary twisted forest, gazing from spectacular cliffside vistas, overlooking miles and miles of lush forested meadows? Or you should enjoy great museums, galleries, shops, or great dining, all in a special place, combining beauty and all the fun you can imagine. Put the you back in Utah, in Cedar City, Bryan Head, packed full of things you love. Live performances during the Shakespeare Festival, spectacular campsites and cozy cabins, plus hiking, biking, and ATV trails everywhere. Or tee up for 18 holes of year-round golf at Cedar Ridge Golf Course. Or enjoy a friendly game of disc golf at Thunderbird Gardens. Plan your adventure at Cedar City, Bryan Head, and get to know the you in Utah. Details at visitcedarcity.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Email from school about the incident today.
Scary.
You know,
Teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
Yeah, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, anything, you need to tell an adult, someone you know and trust. That can be hard, but speaking up about a problem is what helping a friend is all about.
For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, a new law that beefs up penalties for road rage in Utah takes effect July 1st, nearly a month after two different cases of road rage turned deadly. Second, court documents show police believe a truck driver accused of killing a Santaquin police sergeant was high on meth at the time. He faces aggravated murder charges. And third, a series of executive actions from President Biden would potentially keep people who enter the country illegally from seeking asylum here. Right now, sunny and 73 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. If you've missed any of the program today, I want to make sure you go to kslpodcast.com. Just go to Inside Sources. You can go to any of the segments of the show. That's what I do because our guests are that good. I love to go back. I can't stand to hear the sound of my own voice. That's normal. But I love to hear the sound of our guests because they are so smart. We had Robert Sherman joining us today. He has been in Tel Aviv for a very long time and has spent most of the time since October the 7th until today there in Tel Aviv and in and around Israel. He always gives us the best perspective in terms of what's actually going on. And some very interesting things that Robert pointed out over the weekend, and that is that the people inside of Israel are starting to think that maybe Benjamin Netanyahu is the right person to lead through this phase of the war. I don't think anyone has great endearing thoughts of him being there for the long haul, but they do feel like he has the chops and he has the ability to navigate the way to get to the end of this conflict, which includes getting all the hostages that are still alive back home safely and getting rid of the threat so that they don't have to live in fear of another October 7th from Hamas. I thought President Biden, of course, laid out some important things on Friday, and Robert really drilled into this for us, saying, look, the fact that these negotiations are still being negotiated is a big deal. This hasn't really happened over the last several months since they did have the brief ceasefire and some of the hostages were released earlier in the year. This has been a long time since any real negotiations have been happening. And so that's a good thing. It should be taken as a positive point. So you can go to the KSL podcast and you can just click on that conversation with Robert Sherman about the state of things in Israel and the negotiations going on between Qatar, Egypt, Hamas, and Israel, and what that ultimately could lead to in terms of that permanent ceasefire and making sure that those hostages that remain are returned. So an important conversation there. We also had a fascinating conversation just in the last segment, if you missed it. Jerry Brewer, sports columnist for the Washington Post. This was a deep dive about grievance culture in sports and how a lot of our tribalism and a lot of the things that we are now doing in our politics are splashing over to the stadium and onto the playing field. And it's a sad commentary because for so long, our sports have been a part of healthy civic pride, not more tribalism. You could really get angry about whether you were a Jets fan or a Giants fan if you lived in New York, or between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. You could be a Cowboys person or a San Francisco 49ers person, but you just hated the laundry, the color of the jersey. You could sit next to someone at a game and you could go at it in some good, healthy banter, but now it's gone past that. Now it's angry, and it's filled with that kind of rage and in-your-face stuff that we don't need in our sports, and we definitely don't need in our society. And so none of these things began with a certain political party or a certain politician, for that matter. These are things that we've allowed to bubble up in our society that we've got to course correct, that we have to get back to. So Jerry Brewer, a fantastic piece in the Washington Post, and it got me thinking about all kinds of things related not just to sports, more importantly to the principles and what we're actually doing in our communities. That really makes a difference for all of us. I want to round out the program really where we began today, with President Biden making a speech today announcing an executive action. And this is one of those things where I need you to step back just a little bit. We often talk about this in the context of an executive order. And an executive order and an executive action are different. They are not the same. I have problems with both of them. And I don't care which political party you're in or who's in the White House. I always say what gets done by executive order gets undone by executive order. So what is an executive order? Executive orders done by a president carry the weight of law. They're put into the Federal Registry. Now, they can be challenged in court and overturned. They can be overturned by a following president who decides he doesn't want to do that anymore. She doesn't want to follow that anymore, and they can be overturned. Executive action, which is what the president announced today, has less teeth than that. They're really a strongly worded suggestion at best. And so what the president laid out today, which ironically, he passionately declared as un-American as he was running for president in 2020, in a passionate debate against the former now President Biden, then candidate Biden, laid out these very same orders that he is talking about today in his executive action as being un-American. And now, sadly, I think for a lot of political purposes, his calculus has been that this is good for him politically. And so he's rolled these out today, much to the chagrin of many within his own political party, who are saying this is a sad day that the president would sell out on all of these things. Now, the action that he described today will go in effect today. It is based on the idea that if there are daily encounters of over 2,500 between official ports of entry, that this kicks in. And everyone in the administration admitted today these go in effect today because they've exceeded that 2,500 number, and so it shuts things off. This is a pretty extreme move in terms of shutting things off. And again, his own political party saying this is a sad day that the president would do this. This is not how we do things in America. And so the banter is going to go back and forth, and I think the president actually may have unified both Democrats and Republicans today who all agree that this was not the way to do this. Now, to the president's credit, the president's been trying to get something done. There was a bipartisan bill that didn't get done, and the president pointed that out today. He's done what he can do. It's up to Congress to actually do it the right way that will last. If we do things by executive action or executive order, it creates more uncertainty.